just going on a golf mind dump, like just dumping everything in my brain. You know, I see a lot of amateur golfers. They want to get better at golf, and their approach is, they have a poor approach to really getting better at golf. They treat it too much. Golf is too expensive to treat like, what's a good example? Something you could do 30 minutes a week, doesn't cost that much money. What's an activity? I can't think of an activity right now. I think basketball would be a good example of something. I think you can just buy a basketball, go to the park. There's plenty of parks. You don't really need basketball shoes. You can shoot a ball around and call it basketball, enjoy, have fun. You don't need to go take lessons. Golf is not really like that. And I'm gonna tell you why. Golf takes a lot of time, which is extremely expensive. When you start golfing, it takes practice. It takes hours and hours of practice. Golf, you really can't do 30 minutes a week. You really can't. You know, actually with like 5-iron golf, I guess it's making it more accessible to everyone to do 30 minutes a week, not have golf clubs, have fun, and still call it golf. But before, it's not really like that. You got to go to the golf course. You got to know how to go to the golf course. You got to know how to fit in. You've got to know some of the rules. But my point being, golf takes a lot of time, and it's not even the money. The time part is expensive. To get better at golf takes a lot of hours. To get better at golf takes a lot of knowledge. And when we get into learning the game of golf and you want to actually get better, you need to think about it a little bit more like how you would learn mathematics. Like why we can all have a certain level of math. Can we all, as adults, I'm 41, confident that I can add and subtract, I can do multiplication, division, I can calculate percentages, longhand. I don't need a calculator. I know how to check my work. There's like this basic, and I'm confident. Could I teach it? Maybe, maybe not. I'm not sure if I could teach it or not. But I'm confident that I can add and subtract, do multiplication, division, basic things like that. I'm confident. And that's because I went through grade school, I did a year in college, and I followed a curriculum. You know, I started from kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, and I did my homework, most of it, took my test, quizzes, and I followed it step by step, and someone taught me, like, this is, like, we didn't really move on. And in golf, we don't really learn golf that way. Some of us do. Some of us start out, like, if your grandparents, your parents are decent golfers and they grew up in a country club, or not in a country club, but they grew up with like a head pro and they really respected them or honored them and said, okay, like when I have a child, you're going to teach them, given that you will, and you stick to that program for a very long time and you're trusting them. Those are the golfers that actually get the best. Is you put full trust in someone and you teach them golf, like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, you know, and then you would get into, I'm not even sure, algebra and algebra 2, trigonometry, geometry. Whether you think that's relevant or not, that's kind of how we learn things. That's why at an older age we have this level of of knowledge and understanding and problem-solving skills. If you look at golfers who have learned that way, and I have many friends that have learned that way, learned golf that way. I was on Instagram and I'm looking at one of my buddies, and his wife played golf at a very high level in junior golf, and I feel like she hasn't touched the golf club in, I don't know, at least 10 years, literally. And she's got a great swing and hit a golf ball just fine, even though she's probably hasn't hit one golf ball in almost a decade. Which brings me to the point, like, I don't know, I think if I never added anything for the next 10 years, I'm confident that I can add. And it's just because the way I've learned it. If you think about golf that way, you should really find someone who can teach you in those steps. Now, this is where, like, there's good coaching and poor coaching, and the differences, in my opinion, is because you're really good at math doesn't mean you can teach it. Like, I think good teachers at certain subjects, they're very good at teaching that subject. Does that mean they can apply it? Maybe, maybe not. But that's not the point. Because you're good at teaching it doesn't mean you're good at applying it in business or whatever. And then there's people who can do both. But when I look at golf instructors and I'm watching them teach a beginner or someone who's a 25 or a 30 handicapper, and you're watching them teach like very advanced things, or like, it's like you need to start kind of from the bottom and really make sure they understand like the addition, subtraction, multiplication, division of golf very, very well before you move on. That's why, you know, any famous instructor, anyone in the top 100 that, you know, it's not even about teaching a great player. I'd love, like, the ultimate test is seeing if you can get, you know, Mrs. Johnson or Mrs. Kim, who's a 25 handicapper, they've been playing golf for 35 years, you know, to see if they can get him to hit a fairway wood off the ground. That's like the ultimate test. I'd love to see it. Where would you start? What would you say? That's the ultimate test. And also, if you watch someone teach a complete beginner, someone who's never even held a club, where to start and how do they relay the message? How fast are they moving? Are they already talking about the wrist cock on day one? You know, that really shows you how good of a teacher they are, how good of a coach they are, or, you know. And some of the best coaches in the world that I respect, they'll tell you very little, because really, what are you going to teach someone on day one of math class? How much information are you going to give them? So, the golfers who would really get a lot better with me is they have their basics down. They can do their multiplication, division, adding, addition, subtraction. They've got that like pat down, so they're kind of ready for the next level, or whatever I say will make sense because I'm assuming they know this much. If I say this is what you need to work on, even though you think it's XYZ, I think you need to work on ABC. If you have full trust and just do it, you're gonna get a lot better. I mean, I've worked with so many amateur golfers, women, high handicappers, and they're, you know, talking about the backswing and they feel like they get too steep, and they're talking about rotation. And I'm like, you need to work on your practice routine. And what I mean by that is you need to work on your volume and how to get thoughts out of your head and not add more thoughts. So if I get into detail, it's like you need to learn how to hit range balls. You need to learn how to put a golf ball in the middle of the mat or the grass, look at the target, look back down, and have one swing thought, whatever your coach gave you, and hit, hold your finish, and then do it again. And you need to learn to do that, where you train yourself to only think about one thing. And if you've been taught improperly, or you've spent too much time on YouTube, like me, you think, well, I got to do this in my setup, and then this on the backswing, and then I have to get shallow, and then my wrist does this, and then I don't turn my body, and then like I have to release, but then I don't want to release because I'm afraid of releasing. You've got like 19 thoughts. So like some of the best golfers in the world, they have the ability to really critically think about their swing, but also they have the ability to practice not thinking and executing and just letting go. So I've given so many golf lessons where I'll give a bunker lesson, for instance, and we're talking about a high handicapper. I'll say, okay, just think about this one thing. And they say, well, that's it? That's all you want me to do? I'm paying all this money for this lesson? And it's like, yeah, just think about that one thing. We need to practice where you have the ability to think about one thing, and if that one thing is correct, you're going to do great. If it's wrong, if what I tell you is wrong and you focus on it and you work on it a lot, you're not going to get any better. But if I'm right, if what I'm telling you is correct and you work on that one thing, you will get better. A lot of issues come when, okay, I'm going to work on what James told me, this one thing, but also I think I'm supposed to do this, and I'm supposed to do this too. So I'm going to do 3 things. You're not going to get better doing that. No one's gotten better doing that. You've got to learn to do that one thing. If a coach is telling you 3 things, I mean, I'm kind of taking this out of context, but run. So having trust in someone, and I really want you to think about, like, if you're starting out golf or you're a high handicapper trying to get better, it's like learning this thing like math. And if you're getting too fancy on day one, like, something is extremely wrong. If you're starting with something simple and they're putting a lot of weight on it, a lot of value on it, saying, hey, we really need to learn this and get it down till you know it forever, then that's the type of, that's how I see golf. A lot of good golfers, they've done very simple things for a very long time. You know, I'm not the answer to great golf. There's a lot of successful coaches that are not me, where they've created a lot of successful players, amateurs, professionals, and even low to mid handicappers. Like if you're playing in the U.S. women's mid-am, like you're a great golfer. And the way they got there is a lot of hard work, a lot of monogamous, like, repetition. You just keep doing the same thing and simple things. What you wouldn't do in math is ask someone who's not really sure about how to teach algebra, or even if they know it or not, and you wouldn't really ask them if you know what I mean. You would find like a tutor, like a math tutor, or like someone that's credited to being able to teach. Because one, in math, you better assume they know the subject. In golf, it's hard to say, like, hey, do you know golf? Or like, have you taught before? Or have you taught a beginner? And it gets very difficult to find that, I don't know if it's a credential, or how do you know if they know algebra? How do you know that they, because you can hit a bunker shot doesn't mean you can teach it? Is it correct? What's right or wrong? I mean, there's all these questions and it's so vague. And because we don't ask the right questions and we don't have the right approach is why we don't get better. You know, if you belong to a club, and let's say there's a golfer that's, let's say, an 8 handicap, good golfer, great golfer. Let's say they play in club championships, play tournament golf, and you're a 20. One of the worst things you could do is ask that 8 handicapper for advice, because they're going to tell you what they think. What you should do is go ask, go talk to your head professional, or, one of the golf staff, or your local PGA professional, like Michael Block. He's playing really well this week, PGA Championship. But what the 8 handicapper would tell you, and maybe your head professional will tell you, might be completely different. But sometimes as a 20 handicapper or 25 handicapper, you might think like, well, the head professional can't empathize. They don't understand what I'm going through. But you'd be surprised, they would know a lot better than what you're going through than what the 8 handicapper thinks. It's almost like they're too advanced. If you want to learn addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, you find, and you want to be sure to really learn it, you go to the best school in the world, you find the most highly accredited advanced math instructor, math professor, someone who's got multiple PhDs in mathematics. Guess what? They can teach you. It's like saying, oh, like they wouldn't understand what I know and I don't know. It's like, no, they understand. They understand it so well. They're trying to teach other professors and solve other problems. They understand it so well. Like you wouldn't just go to a 5th grader who's really good at math and say, you know what, I'm a little bit closer to your level. I'm an adult, but like I'm a little bit closer to your level. Can you teach me multiplication, division, addition, subtraction? You wouldn't do that, even though they're really good. Let's say they're like number 1 in their class. Let's say they're number 1 in the world at their age, at that level of math. You wouldn't go to them for advice. You would go to their teacher, and their teacher might not be the number 1 teacher in the world, but they're very good at teaching that level of math. That's kind of what you would do. So, to kind of sum it all up, like, have a plan, understand your goals. Don't tell your friends and family and your teaching professionals and say like, hey, I'm a 20 and my goal is to get to a 10 handicap, and you're on YouTube, and then you go to the driving range, and then you're asking all your buddies for help on your swing. Like, that just doesn't make sense. Start at a lower level, listen, take the time to put in the work, doing basic things, Don't go ask someone who you think is a good golfer. You know, if you go to a PGA Tour pro and say, hey, what's your advice? They'll say, hey, go find a good coach and listen to them.